I'm Tessa Smith with Mama's Geeky. Thank you, Jeff, for taking the time to talk with me today.
Tessa, thank you very much for being interested.
Of course, my kids are big Wimpy Kid fans. So I'd love to ask you, what do you think it is about these books and films that really resonates with kids?
I think what resonates with kids is that the characters are messy. Greg's not really an aspirational character. I think that, there are plenty of aspirational characters in children's literature who are brave and, they always do the right thing. And that's cool. It's good to have those kinds of characters. But I think it's also good to have characters who are more like us. I was full of flaws and imperfections as a kid. I still am as an adult. And I think it's good to see those types of characters too.
Yeah, and what I love about this one is this one's about brotherhood. Like the first one was like friendship and Greg kind of finding himself, and this one's just about relationships with your family. So was that kind of the inspiration behind this story?
Yeah, it was. And with each one of these films, we really try to dig into a really big and universal theme. And this one is all about sibling relationships. And I think we sort of we really litigate that, and we really look at it from every angle. We get to see the perception of grandpa and dad and Greg and Rodrick and even Greg's mom. And I think that that's really fun to be able to explore something that's so universal.
Yeah, and then speaking of the grandpa, the Ed Asner, even just at the end, it made me tear up. Can you just talk about working with him and maybe any memories you have of him?
Yeah, it's crazy. We feel so privileged to have been able to work with him. I couldn't believe it when I heard that he agreed to take on this project, and he brought so much to it. And in a role that's fairly short on the screen, he really makes it pay off. And in fact, that's my favorite moment in the film when Grandpa's talking about his own boys. It packs quite a punch. He was a professional. He's very brash and fun, and he's exactly how you'd expect him to be. But I couldn't believe I was sitting on the other end of a screen from Ed Asner. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. He's like a legend. I mean, he really is. He was incredibly talented. So, and he's so great in this. Like I loved hearing his voice. Was kind of like, oh, because it's one of the last times anyone's gonna get to hear it.
Truly, yeah, yeah. What a privilege.
Yeah. And then when the Rick Astley song came on, I felt like that was the perfect song for that moment. Were there any other options you guys were throwing around, or was that gonna be it?
Yeah, we had a bunch of different options that we looked at. But it's funny because we're trying to find the exact right tone. And I think I didn't, and it's funny that we landed on that one because it's like I feel like we're Rick-rolling everybody who watches.
It was great. I was cracking up. So talent show, there's a big talent show in this. Were you ever in a talent show, or what would your talent show talent be?
Oh boy, was I in a talent show? Yes, as a young kid, I was in a kind of a variety act, almost like a Saturday Night Live ripoff. And then nothing after that. But if I had to be in a talent show and win it, I think I'd juggle. I used to be able to juggle pins, so I think I could pull that off.
You could juggle pins even? Those are
Yeah,
huge.
I used to juggle knives, which is why my college roommate went through his whole first aid kit in the first year.
Oh no. That's awesome. That's very impressive though. So we know there's gonna be more, right? Is that like in your brain, like how many Wimpy Kid stories do you have, even book wise? Because I feel like they just keep coming out. You just have to have like an unlimited arsenal.
Yeah, and I don't. Sometimes I feel like the sponge is wrung out. So it's always a challenge to come up with that new story. Hopefully I'll get to 20 books. That's just a few years away, but I'm really hoping we get to adapt a lot of the books into films, because this is really fun. It's the most rewarding part of my professional life. And I'd really love to retell these stories in this way.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun because that's what I like about it is we had the books, we got the live action, and now we're seeing it in this version. Like, how does that feel to know like your stories are being told on so many different mediums?
It's crazy. Within a 1 month span this year, in the last month, I had a new book come out, and then I got to introduce a new Wimpy Kid balloon in the Macy's Day Parade. Now this week we have this second movie coming out. So the only word I can use is privilege. I think I can't believe that these stories have resonated the way that they have. And of course, I just want to ride this wave until somebody tells me I have to get off.
I love it. So were you more of a Greg or a Rodrick? Like, were you throwing parties without your parents' permission, or were you the one being locked in the basement?
I was I was more of a rule follower. I was literally locked in my basement by my older brother. So I wouldn't have had the courage to pull off a party. But I also think I would have had the intelligence to know that you can't pull off that kind of a party without getting caught. There's just too many moving parts. So and of course Roderick finds that out the hard way.
I love it. And one of my favorite things is when Roderick's kind of giving his, Roderick's rules
Yeah.
to Greg. You have an older brother, right? Did he give you kind of like advice or like, kind of rules to get around things, or were you always just such a good kid? You were like, I'm not listening.
Right. I don't know if I was such a good kid, but I think I learned a lot from my older brother by looking through his yearbook. Basically, he would circle kids he didn't like and write jerk or some sort of expletive next to their names. And so it's funny how you as a kid, you're always studying your older siblings' yearbooks, like, because, that's like the key, that's the code, that's the password to that next phase. So I felt like I was always sort of trailing after him in that way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And congratulations. This is incredible.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you so much to all my monetary supporters, my members, and my Patreons. Love you guys.